I don't have a witty intro. This intro sucks. So here's a chap with many names. Some know him as Wally, others know him as Charlie, some Americans know him as Waldo. And yet despite being well known, the poor fellow has a rather nasty habit of getting lost, and thus people have to find him because, well, where's Waldo and all that jazz. His misadventures has often been the subject of interesting game books, where you'd have to seek the poor fellow out, and that's about all I know really. I dig deeper into the subject, but it'd be a pointless endeavor. Now chances are some of you folks are familiar with the NES game Where's Waldo, whether you've heard of it through a number of online video reviews, or you might have actually played the game, in which case you have my deepest condolences. Obviously the NES was ill-equipped to properly replicate the experience of the Waldo books due to the limited color palette. Or rather, so I thought, because here we are again with the Great Waldo Search for the 8-bit NES. This is a game that was also available for the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, both versions having been subjects of prior videos years ago. The one positive I can levy towards the Great Waldo Search on the NES is that it's already an ostensibly better game than the Where's Waldo game that graced the console previously, primarily due to the fact that everything is drawn bigger and as a result, everything looks like something distinguishable rather than some just random crap thrown on there and you having to figure out which of these pixelated smear marks is Waldo. No, here Waldo is pretty much recognizable in his familiar outfit and colors, although you'll have a slightly tougher time with the scroll you'll have to seek out in order to clear levels, because that does have a nasty tendency to blend in with the rest of the playfield. So some familiarity with the boards will definitely help you out here. The Great Waldo Search has 5 boards of play. In all but one, you have to seek out 2 items to clear the board, Waldo himself and Wizard Whitebeard's scroll. In the final board, which is filled entirely with Waldos, you'll have to find Waldo's exposed foot and the aforementioned scroll to clear the level. In addition to the 2 main items, you can also collect clocks to give you more time, bonus points for bonus points, and if you happen to find Waldo's dog, you'll initiate a little mini-game of sorts where you can collect bones for bonus points. You control the magnifying glass with the D-pad, and it's manageable. It feels a bit slow at first, but it's better than the spazzing cursor of the previous game. So much like the 16-bit versions, the Great Waldo Search on NES is a substantial improvement in regards to presentation and control. It looks better than the previous NES offerings by a substantial margin. Everything looks bright and colorful, and not as colorful as the 16-bit versions obviously, but still good enough by NES standards. And it plays a little better too, with the cursor being much more manageable, even if it is a little slower, but again, it plays a bit better. However, with only 5 boards to play, the replay value of the Great Waldo Search is very limiting. There's a skill setting you could change around to make Waldo and the scroll harder to find on the boards, but even then, once you know where to look, there's not much left to do with this game, leaving it with a very short lifespan. Also, while the graphics are a step up over the previous game, the audio is a different story entirely, as the Great Waldo Search offers a small number of tunes that sound grating and awful. Where's Waldo, to its credit, while it's not that great of a game, had no music during the gameplay segments, and that's a good thing because the music here is just bad. I mean, really bad. Very, very, very bad. Bad music. Bad. Bad. I got nothing left to say. Overall, the Great Waldo Search on NES is better than the Where's Waldo game that previously graced the console, but quickly wears out its welcome once all is said and done. For what it was a fair attempt at trying to recreate the books, but ultimately, Where's Waldo works better as books than they do video games. Although they did give the Wally video game train another shot with a couple Windows games that were supposedly better, but honestly, I wouldn't know because I've never played those. But I did play this, and all this did was make me wish I was checking out the books instead, which might have been the whole point in the first place, so well played, I suppose. So yeah, there you go. If you like Where's Waldo and you like the books, just stick with the books. Don't bother with the Great Waldo Search on the NES, because it's fine, but it's very limiting in the replay value. Although, to be fair, I am kind of curious about the Fantastic Journey now, so one of these days, I suppose.